Universal Studios Hollywood R.I.P. tour is back, and we got to go.
Today we're going to be reviewing all the houses. We're going to give you our tips and what we thought about the whole event and how to make the most of your night when you go.
I'm Brad.
I'm Kim.
And we're 6260 Hana, California. Like Kim said, we're going to review everything, and actually there were some big changes this year, so stay tuned for the end, and as we go through, we'll explain those changes. So let's go ahead and start with, what is the R.I.P. tour?
So the R.I.P. tour is like a VIP tour. They have a special lounge. We get a tour guide. Dinner's included. There's special bars and areas that you can go to. And even some special photo ops. And this year they added like a mini maze.
Yeah, a maze house. And we still get this wrong. Even our guy got this wrong several times. It's hard for us, being called mazes for so many years, going to houses. What's the cost for all that? It
ranges for $409 all the way up to $529, depending on which night you choose.
Yeah, so some weekdays are going to be cheaper, some weekends are going to be more expensive. Closer you get to Halloween, it tends to get a little bit more expensive. So something to be aware of, and dates do sell out quickly. We went to the first night, which was completely sold out.
Now, also to pay attention to that, if you're wanting to save a little bit of money, the Wednesday, Thursdays, or Sunday tours will be cheaper because they also end earlier.
So the time of the events, as Kim was saying, is that varies. Most weekdays are going to end up at 1 o'clock like ours did, and weekends will go to 2 o'clock.
So we'll get into what we thought about that at the end.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and tell you what we first did. Well, obviously with the R.I.P. tour, you get a special entrance. There are two ways to enter the park. So if you don't have an annual pass, there is the front of the park entrance where you'll check in and they'll check your times and everything else and let you go into the VIP beginning lounge.
Yeah, so it's usually the VIP, so you can go from either outside of the park if it's first time of the day that you're going into the park, or if you've been in the park during the day, then you could go through where the VIP area is through the park entrance by the entrance exit area.
Yeah. So the first thing you do when you check in is they give you
a lanyard.
Yep, give you a lanyard, a wristband, and send you on upstairs to wait for your tour guide.
Well, it depends. If you have a later tour, you can still get all your credentials and go and use the express lanes, R.I.P. tour lane, and get in earlier.
Mm-hmm. We did have an early 520 tour, which we would recommend the earlier tours just for time's sake.
Yeah.
So we did that, went up, waited for our tour guide, Kyle, and they kind of run through everything you need to know, what's going to go on throughout the little bit of the night as you go through. And we headed to our first stop, which is
dinner.
Yeah, so dinner is a buffet style type of dinner that you kind of go down through the line. So the food choices this year were, Kim thought they were better. I was kind of like, okay, it's kind of what was expected.
I like they had a lot more healthier choices. I like to have some light food sometimes going through the park because we're doing so much that I don't want to feel weighed down.
Yeah, and I really do like that they have the salads and the fresh fruit. This meat I had was really good. Desserts were
okay.
Yeah.
I still love that chocolate warm cookie.
And also the note is that with this it's unlimited. You can go back as many times as you want. They do have sodas, waters, and special drinks for you if you like to have it. And you get an hour. And there is another cool thing about this area that you can do, which Kim and I both did, is if you're over 21, you can get some drinks.
So they have a bar out on the patio. It looks over kind of like the whole valley because it's such a high view up there. It's gorgeous, but it's kind of a nice way to start your evening and then get on with your tour.
Kim did get a special drink for the event. I will put the name down here. I can't remember what it is, but it kind of changes color, and it was a rum-based drink.
It was really good, but it's very sweet.
I was boring, as the bartender put it, and said, "You just got a beer."
He said it was a good beer.
Yeah. Other than that, yeah, you get an hour of that time to eat, drink, and kind of relax a little bit before you start your run.
I actually think it might be slightly too much time. I wish they'd shave 15 minutes off.
So one notable change from this year from last year is normally you get pictures, and there was usually a scare actor there that had a special picture with you. This year, they didn't have that.
They just kind of had like a prop wall kind of thing.
Yeah, like the normal prop wall, but they didn't have the scare actor. We'll get into this a little bit more because actually the change they made might be for the better.
Okay, so moving along, we went to our first house, and that was The Last of Us. It's based on the video game, not on the TV series.
Yeah, so if you're thinking of the HBO series, The Last of Us, they basically, what we were told is the rights for The Last of Us, they didn't want to have to pay the actors and everything else for that thing, so they based it off the Sony game, this. So if you're familiar with the game, everybody who played the game said they really loved it.
They had a lot of clickers in there. I only know that term because I've seen the show. I haven't played the video game, so I'll let you say that. We will say at the end of the night, this was a favorite among R.I.P. tour group that we were with. I think that was a really good house. I think that they had a lot of clickers. They had a lot going on.
Actually, the acting that they were doing in the very beginning all the way through was a different thing for that, and it did work.
It did. So I think it was a really solid, good house, but I don't know if it was my favorite, and we'll get into the why later.
Yeah. So let's go to our next stop, which was the first house announced this year, which is Chucky, the ultimate kill count.
So this was the one I was really interested to see because it's based on the sci-fi show and not the movies. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the movies, you would understand the whole good guys and everything else, but it did have Chucky's family in it.
But actually, it was really cool going through that house. I really enjoyed it. But this is a house that surprised me the most because I feel like there were so few scare actors. There was a lot more
animatronics.
Yes, kind of things, lighting. There were more effects. It was more about the storyline, but not through scare actors.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I think we were going to go a little bit more deep of what we thought of this, because this is the one that we're really torn on.
Yeah, this is that one surprise, because I feel like if they had put one or two more scare actors in there, it might have elevated it to one of my favorites.
Okay, so let's go to our next one, which was Universal Monsters Unmasked. And you're like, oh, this has been here they've done this for years. Well, they keep expanding it and changing it every year a little bit, and it's actually this year they have added 2 new scenes into it.
What I really like about Universal Monsters Unmasked is this goes back to the origins of the horror genre.
Actually, the origins of Universal Studios in a way.
So these iconic characters, Dr. Hyde and Mr. Jekyll, you've got the Phantom of the Opera, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the Invisible Man, and somehow John Murdy and his team merge all these together to make this incredible house.
Yeah, really, it was. I like that they're changing it every year. It doesn't feel. It still feels fresh every year you go through it.
So this is supposed to take place underneath the streets of Paris, and it's dark and musky, and you just get this whole vibe, and it feels like there's a lot of stories and the scare actors in with it. But if you really want to look at a story behind a house, I feel like this comes alive, and I really think this is a creative, incredible story all merged together, and I loved it.
Yeah. Okay, so after that, we obviously this is on I would say the middle lot way.
It's
that mid lot
H.
Yeah. So after that, we went to our second thing. Well, we went to the Terror Tramp, and now you're thinking, well, you had a 520. Well, they actually delayed us a little bit because with that hour thing to make sure that the Terror Tramps this year are all going to be in the dark,
which was a big help. So this was called the Terror Tram, the Exterminators, with the host being Larry the Lava. Larry definitely needed a dentist.
Yeah, he was kind of a gross guy.
Funny. But
they did have him throughout the whole maze, which was really cool.
Yep.
And really,
I enjoyed this year.
Yeah, this year's Terror Tram was really good. It was well executed. Everything about it was great.
It was 1,000 times better than last year.
You're going through the Bates Motel Hotel area. They had that theme with Karen and
influencers.
It's like all those people that are being exterminated to some funny.
It definitely had a comical component to terror tram, and that's always kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then we went up to the Bates Motel and got our annual picture with Norman.
Yeah, and that's always kind of the pictures opportunities there, and it's great to have. They took us to the front, which you'll see with the R.I.P tour that they do a lot to make sure that you kind of get through. So yeah, that picture was great. Then we went to the second part of
Exterminators.
And would this be considered a maze?
Yeah, it still is. It's still a house.
A house.
I guess it's a house, but it's outside, so it seems like it's a maze. So that's where we get thrown off.
So
it's terror tram.
Yeah, they had a lot of interesting bugs coming at you, everything else there.
Gross.
And here's where the R.I.P tour comes in kind of really cool. Is that you get to a certain point and all of a sudden you have a special house just for R.I.P tour.
Well, okay, the first time we went through the tour, this hadn't opened yet. I guess it still needed to be cleared by the fire marshal. So the cool thing for us having the R.I.P tour is at the end of the night, our tour guide, Kyle, went and made some special arrangements. We got on the last tram of the night and then got to go through everything real quick. And we got to where they had like this mini house just for the R.I.P tour, which that was really awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool. It was a different experience, which I really liked how they did that this year.
Then you go back through the rest of the tram area, and then at the end, you go up to Nope and go through with the scare actors up there.
That was really kind of like last year.
Exact same.
Yeah, so that wasn't a big change. It's still fun. But at the end of Nope, they all of a sudden take you off to the side. You're thinking, well, we're going back to our tram. But no, you're wrong. And this is where we're talking about during the live scare actor that they normally have. They changed this year. They actually put him down below.
So they had like a little mini like facade scene with Black Phone with the van. So you get a photo with the grabber, but he kind of interacts with your whole tour group. And actually I felt like for Bloomhouse last year, that was the scene that was missing. So it was kind of interesting that they brought that into an R.I.P experience.
Yeah, and it was really cool. It's a cool scene. Everything works great, and I really like that change this year over having the scare actor up before dinner.
At the R.I.P lounge.
Yeah. There's a lot here, and we're going to be going because that's the way our tour was going. It was going boom, 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 boom.
It was a fast-paced night.
Yes. So from there, we actually ended up getting back onto our R.I.P trolley. And they kind of drove us through the back lot, through the Old West and a little bit of the streets, which is really neat because
it's dark.
It's really dark, and this year there was no production going on, so you kind of had the really dark,
There's
eerie
nothing
feeling
around, so they went and told us some ghost stories.
Yeah, and they're fun.
Yeah, definitely, but it was really cool, and we learned some new things. Like we didn't realize that Alfred Hitchcock would go and cut out a little piece of red carpet for all of his movies and keep them. And supposedly they're all still in his bungalow on the Universal Studios lower lot in his bungalow.
Yeah, so you get little cool facts like that, and that's kind of the advantage of having the VIP tour guides doing the R.I.P tours, because they still give you those little things, but they like to add a little scary twist in some of that stuff. So it was really fun. After that, we ended up going to The Exorcist Believer.
So this is based on two little girls that went missing and kind of what happened to them when they were missing, and they came back to, of course, they're possessed.
Yeah, so it's everything you would expect from The Exorcist.
I really think this was once again, this had a lot of special effects, details. I really, really enjoyed this house. I was surprised. Based on the last Exorcist, my expectations were low, and this was one of my more favorite houses.
Yeah, it was a fun house. It was scary.
So you'll see as we're going through, you'll get to see kind of all this fun stuff. It just, once again, when they bring the tech to everything and special effects along with the scare actors, it's like, wow.
Yeah. So after The Exorcist, we ended up going to, well, one of the big ones this year, which was Stranger Things 4.
Okay, so this starts out, season 4, you start out in the trailer with Christy. Rest in peace, Christy. And all that story you go through, and this is all about escaping the curse of Vecna. This was incredible. Stranger Things 4, just the season blows your mind if you're into it.
And they really had some like the characters that looked like coming out and doors and things like that. It was, and truthfully, we really loved this one.
Okay, so based on previous year of House before, our expectations were a little low because we were so excited to come into this that we kind of wanted to not be let down just because we had high expectations. But I'll tell you what, the scare actor that was Steve our night, he looked just like him. And 11, and you could see the characters in there and the storylines, and the scare actors were incredible. And it was like, wow. Yeah,
it was always keeping you busy, going every which direction, which I really liked. It matched the shows. If you watch the shows, if you haven't watched Stranger Things 4, it might be worth watching it before you hit this house. After that, we went to our Showtime. Now, this is a different thing this year, that they did schedule a show for the R.I.P. tour at a certain time.
Well, they had in the past, but it was usually the end of the night. When you see Jabberwockies, I think Jabberwockies before was really good, but it didn't hit that Halloween theme for me. So I always kind of felt like it was slightly misplaced.
Yeah, and so with The Purge Dangerous Waters is a brand new show that uses in the water world venue. And really, this is a great addition this year.
I was on the edge of my seat during the show. You'll see as we're talking about this, about storylines and just how they elevated actors with special effects and stunts and
laser lights. It was everything.
And the show, I was like, the ending was like, wow, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, and I did videotape some of it, but some of it I found myself putting my camera down just to watch because it was so engaging and really gory.
It was. I was surprised. I mean, the funny thing is there were so many of us around. There were so many like gasps and like, oh, and like ahs and like edge of the seat. Like it really engaged people. I think it really brought that Halloween theme, and I'm glad we have a show like this. That was amazing.
So if you're on the R.I.P. tour, they do have a section that's set away for you, and it's a good view. You're pretty much center, so you'll have the full view of the whole
show,
and we really did enjoy that. It was a great addition. So there is another new show too that they did this year, which was?
It was the Blumhouse behind the scenes. I thought it was cool because it's in the DreamWorks theater.
Yeah, so where Shrek was, and now
Kung Fu Panda. Mm-hmm. And so you go inside, and they have all this movie memorabilia. I'll tell you right now, our son is so psyched to go see Five Nights at Freddy's. He is just like literally at the edge of his seat and can't talk about much else.
Yeah, and it does cover the Blumhouse, Megan, and
Black Phone at and Five Nights at Freddy's. And it was really cool because those animatronics I'm showing you are the ones they used in the movie, and they have real movie props throughout, which is really kind of neat to see. And they even had the Invisible Man, so that was kind of cool. I mean, how many props can you show from the Invisible Man?
And they and they also do have a photo op there of the Black Phone.
So that was really incredible. And then we went in, and basically it's kind of like you see a previews, and it feels like when you go to a movie theater and you see the previews before a movie, well, it's like a mashup of all kinds of previews like that.
And then something happens.
All of a sudden, it gets really dark.
Spoiler alert, we don't want to run into it, so go ahead and fast forward a little bit. But Megan's come out, and they do kind of a...
It's a dance and a routine and kind of like a little interactive, fun thing. But the funny thing is it's over very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing. They do, the dancers that play Megan are phenomenal.
Yeah. So it's kind of a neat addition this year.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's like lights, curtain down, lights up, and everybody's kind of waiting for that next thing. And all of a sudden, like, get out. And the funny thing that we went is kind of random. Is all of a sudden the fire alarm went off, but it seemed like a different alarm. Like I was like, okay, this is just kind of part of the whatever. And we're walking out, and nobody's taking it very seriously at this point. We just kind of think it's the end of the show. It's like a, I don't know, special effect, or I don't know. But shamefully, we all everybody was just kind of like not, even the team members were like, okay, everybody leave. It was very calm. And then after we get out and we were waiting for our tour group to get up, they're like, everybody's got to get away from here. Like, okay, so apparently it was real.
Another kind of cool thing is before you enter in, there is a scare actor and grabber in two spots, right at the very beginning with the black balloon, and also him kind of sneaking around the trees of that area. So that was kind of really cool and fun. He would sneak up on people and not even people wouldn't even realize it.
It was really an interesting use of that area.
After that, ended up going to Evil Dead Rise. Now, this is the area that you may know that was for
The Walking Dead, and then later
last year was the
Halloween Hotel.
Yeah. So this has kind of been a reused set for quite a while.
And you could definitely see the reused parts, and you're like, oh, I remember that from last year. This was my least favorite house.
And the reason we're kind of saying that, truthfully, I like that they had a lot more scare actors in it this year.
Yes.
But it felt very reused. It's like they were trying to fit everything into this thing again.
Into the space. It was okay, but it's not one of the movies we're as familiar with out of the horror genre. But it's something that it was okay. So one of the houses is going to be our least favorite. This probably hit that mark. Okay, so when it came out, it was right before 11. So our tour guide, Kyle's like, look, I'm arranging something, getting it done. That's where we went back and did the second Terror Tram. The, I guess, expedited version.
Yeah, and this, to be clear, this is not normal for the R.I.P. tour to have this. This was something that he was trying to make up for the problems that we had on ours.
And kudos to Kyle, because
he worked hard on trying to make sure everything was going and trying to make sure we got everything in, which really, Kyle, awesome.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the other R.I.P. tours didn't get to do that experience, so we're around the same time we were, but Kyle was on the phone, like he made things happen. He was a mover and groover. I liked it.
Yep. So after we did the second Terror Tram, we ended up going to this year's, I guess what you put, Latin America feel.
You've had La Llorona before. So this year we had Monstruos, the monsters of Latin America.
Yeah, so this was actually a lot of fun.
I really enjoyed it, but wow, there's some scary characters. I'm not as familiar with those traditions and those stories that some people grew up with, like really ingrained and enriched in their lives. But holy moly, if you told me the stories as a kid,
I've been scared.
Yeah, I mean those like birds with the claws. Ooh.
Yeah,
it was definitely scary. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a great change from La Llorona. If you do want to see La Llorona, we actually did see her in that center area.
It's like the Dia de los Muertos courtyard kind of area.
And she was kind of floating around there, and she actually had a lot of fun with our guide, who was actually, Kyle admits that he was a scaredy cat, and he kind of ran away from her.
I don't blame him. She's scary.
But if you do get a chance to go to that area, go to that area. It's really cool.
And just like a little bit is opening night, we did get to meet John Murdy, who was there. It's not part of the R.I.P. tour. That's not encouraged. But there's a few of us who were like, we gotta ask for a picture.
And truthfully, keep your eye out there. On the R.I.P. tour, we did see some celebrities.
So we won't say who they are, just because.
Yeah, but there were celebrities in the VIP lounge area, and that's another thing we forgot to mention. We did stop at the VIP lounge that's at the
Stellar Bar.
Stellar Bar, which is really cool, 80s themed. I really love the neon of that.
I think it's fun. It's got some fun music, 80s music. Definitely Stranger Things themed drinks. Mm-hmm. I got the Upside Down. It's a vodka based drink with a lot of juices. And then it was supposed to have a candied hibiscus and some strawberry boba balls. Very interesting mix. Beautiful colors. The candied hibiscus I did not care for at all.
And the boba balls, you couldn't get through the straw.
So, yeah, I didn't have any boba balls. But I didn't really taste any alcohol. It was really sweet. Somehow these themed drinks up there, they're okay. But I think they go really light on the alcohol, and that might be on purpose.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of a really cool area, and it's a nice little pit stop for a little bit, get a drink and kind of relax for a minute.
It's usually what, down in the lower lot, it's where the Jurassic Cafe, the upstairs seating is, if that helps you a little bit.
The other things we need to mention, we did miss a house in our order, and that is the
Holidays in Hell.
Yeah.
I love this house.
Yeah, it's been there before, and really, again, it's like with the Universal Monsters house, they change it, and it keeps it fresh, and they changed it up. Some of the scenes you'll recognize from years past, but they changed what's going on in it.
Well, this year, I will say there's a heavy theme on St. Patrick's Day, which, that was interesting.
I love the beginning of the house, right here for New Year's, and the scare actors out front. That was really cool.
And just going through, you go throughout like the year of all the holidays that you could, major holidays, I should say. And going through like some of them, like going through Halloween, there was some pumpkin smell being pumped in the house this year. And then you go into Thanksgiving. This is kind of weird because it has a Thanksgiving smell being pumped into the room, and it's really gory. Thanksgiving's gory.
But it's also
one of my favorite holidays, but it got really gory.
And it has a little rancid smell to it.
Exactly. Yeah, Thanksgiving smelled rancid, and it definitely went wrong. And I think those turkeys were out for some revenge.
Yeah. So that was really neat. And that one did feel fresh, even though it was a reuse. I really liked how they did that.
And once again, Christmas smelled like Christmas, but as you went outside, somebody's bowels decorated some trees. Yikes.
So another thing that we do need to mention, and we were talking about this, there are a couple of scare zones this year. So obviously there's that front scare zone where you're going to be walking through.
Toys.
Yeah, and that was a little... I wasn't that scared by it, but the scare actors, they did seem to have a lot more scare actors out this year, and maybe that's because our experience last year, we were doing rain, but it was still fun.
I thought they did an amazing job.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of freaky having these dolls come up with cut faces.
Yeah, and definitely some weapons and stuff. Yikes.
And then over in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, there is the Death Eaters are back again this year.
I really love the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So adding in Knights, the Death Eaters, pretty awesome.
And after getting out of Monstros, they do have that kind of area that they have every year that they retheme again. It's kind of rethemed towards the Latin America. And that was kind of so cool. I
feel overall these houses were really solid this year. I think this was an amazing year.
This was a really good year. We really enjoyed it. As far as our favorite houses, what was yours?
Oh, see, I have a really hard time with that one. That's why I'm saying it's such a solid year. Is honestly, I have to go back to Exorcist Believer or Universal Monsters en Masse. Those two were really high up for me. And I love Stranger Things, so that's why I'm like, I almost have a top 3 in a way.
For me, and it's actually my biggest surprise of the year, is Stranger Things. We've
Stranger Things 4.
In the past we did Stranger Things, and it just felt kind of okay. This year it really hit every mark of the series. I really enjoyed that.
As a Stranger Things fan, especially season 4, because season 4 was mind blowing. And they really brought that to life. And I agree with you. I really enjoyed that house.
And then as far as the value of the R.I.P. tour. Well, for the price, really, if you got the regular entry for Halloween Horror Nights and got the Express Unlimited for that, you're only looking at about $100 per person difference. And again, these prices vary depending on the night.
Those are the cheapest nights, but...
You're also getting food, you're getting special mazes, you're getting the special photo ops. I really think overall, if you're going to do this and you want to get every maze in, get everything done, this is the way to do it.
So I feel like going back through and doing 4 more houses, that was a big deal, because it was like we got to do half a second time, plus the Terror Tram a second time.
And this was a sold out night. So this is a full capacity night, which is really, even if you had the Unlimited Express,
they were backed up.
Yeah, they were lines that where R.I.P. can kind of work their way up to the front.
Last year they had 3 separate lines for all the houses. This year they only had 2. I feel like that backed things up a little bit too in a way.
Yeah, and it actually kind of backfires. If that's a big change of the R.I.P. tour this year, is that you don't get to use the R.I.P. entrance for everything this year. You are going to be, if you're afterwards, you're going to be going into the regular Universal Express lanes. So that could some of those lanes got to like 20 minutes or so. It's still not as bad as some of like what we saw for Chucky at 110 minutes for the regular lines. I mean, a lot of these mazes are over 2 hours. So if you want to get everything done, this is an incredible value. You get your food, you drink your sodas, waters,
coffee, teas, whatever.
And then the special things. I really think this is the way to go. And most of the people we talked to that once they did the R.I.P. tour have a hard time even trying to go back because you're spoiled.
Yeah, it would be hard to go back. And honestly, I feel like with those extra, like the extra mini maze at Terror Tram and that extra interactive photo op that seemed like more with Black Phone this year, I really feel like that value got elevated this year.
Mm-hmm. So, comment down below. Have you been on the R.I.P. tour before? Did you feel it was worth the value of what you got? Or would you rather just in a different way and maybe did like the unlimited nights scare pass that they have?
But I would also add, I would really highly recommend those nights that go till 2 a.m. because you have extra time to do this stuff. I think we would have made it all the way through all 8 houses again if we had that extra hour.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where we're at. We've done the R.I.P. tour for several years. It is it's fun, a lot of fun. But even just going to the event, if you're not doing the R.I.P. tour, you may want to look at that Universal Express Pass. Just because of how bad these lines back up.
I think unless you did like an early entry or a Universal Express Pass or R.I.P. tour, if you had just a general pass to Halloween Horror Nights, I think you'd be almost impossible to do every single house. Now, of course, there's always those people that have the exception, but on a sold out night, and especially one that only goes till 1 a.m., that would be really, really hard.
So, with that, I think we've covered all our bases on Halloween Horror Nights.
For 2023.
Yeah. So, will we go back for 2024?
Yes. And of course, we want to wish you all a happy Halloween.
So, with that, I think it's time for us to say goodbye and
find your magic. Bye, everyone.